Welcome to Washington East to West Sports. This is episode 29. I am Matt Beatty, joined alongside, as usual, by Sean Beatty and Kevin Ardall. Gentlemen, there is an NCAA tournament happening this year, unlike last year. We're going to get into that a little bit later, as a Washington team is the top overall seed. But, gentlemen, let's talk about the Seattle Mariners. So if you guys want to get in on the conversation out there, for those of you listening at home, go ahead and tweet at us. I'm at Beatty_Matt. Sean's at Sean_Beatty. Kev's at Kev believes with the first team, believes me at 3. Just subscribe to our YouTube page. Follow us on the Eli Network. Follow our page. And let us know what you think about the Seattle Mariners so far. So, gentlemen, let us just recap what has gone on in spring training since we last had our big Mariners preview. So, Tuesday, they won against Kansas City 6-3. Wednesday, they lost 17-5 and 7. And then on March 11th, on Thursday, they faced LA Dodgers, tied at 4-4 and 7. Then on Friday, they faced Cincinnati, won 4-3 and 8. Colorado on Saturday, 2-1 loss. Sunday, Milwaukee win 5-4 in 8 innings. And then today, they lost 6-2 to the Arizona Diamondbacks. So, gentlemen, I just want to point out a few things that I see here. So, the winning pitchers so far this last week were Newsome, Swanson, and Montero. So, gentlemen, I just want to let you get your opinions on this. So, this last week, what have you seen from the Mariners, and has anything really changed in your opinion about how this roster might be constructed come regular season time? So, Sean, I'm going to throw it to you. What have you seen from this Mariners team this last week, and give me maybe some thoughts on what you've seen so far?
No, I don't think the roster construction has changed too much. I would like Evan White to do just anything at this point, but the rumor I think is like he might be start down in the minors this year, maybe, or get sent down there kind of early to figure some stuff out. Because again, if you remember, he had no at bats above AA going into starting last year, struggled, and he's struggling again. So maybe getting him some AAA at bats isn't the worst thing in the world. But other than that, maybe with the only shakeup being, I still see Trammell still hitting. I think Trammell's basically locked up the left field job. Bishop and Haggerty and all those other guys, Fraley, they're not playing well enough. It's Trammell. I will say I do like what I've seen from the starting pitchers, other than Justice Sheffield, who had a really rough outing in that 17 to whatever you said 4 game or whatever. He looked rough, but
17-5.
17-5. Newsome and Kikuchi and these other guys. I don't really care what your end of the game numbers are because it's spring. I just want what's your velo look like? Are you walking people? Like, are you throwing strikes? That's really what I care about. And other than Kikuchi's first inning, he looked pretty good. He settled down, threw really harder than he did last year. Newsom's not really a gas throwing guy, but he is not walking people. He's controlling the zone like he wants to, and like the Mariners do, and the Mariners are kind of notorious for doing. I have a soft spot for Newsom, so I'm really rooting for him. But he looks like the long guy with I'm gonna mispronounce his name. I can't remember the long. I'm always gonna mess it up. But yeah, Kevin talked about him last week. Those are the two guys that are gonna be the long guys. So I'm really happy with what I've seen from most parts of the pitchers who will play baseball in 2021 for the Mariners, because that's kind of like their huge question mark coming into the year.
I will point out the stat line against the Rangers in that game. Sheffield went 2 and 2 1/3 innings, 6 earned runs, 3 walks, no strikeouts. So not a great outing for him in that one, but luckily it's just spring training. Kevin, what do you think?
Yeah, kind of as to where Sean alluded, it's kind of hard to take a lot. Like, you want to take away stuff from this, but it's also Cactus League spring training, to where it's like, the good stuff I want to believe will roll into, like Trammell. Another thing, like Kyle Seager right now is just going ape shit. Like, pardon my language, but he's just like, I just hope that continues, because Kyle Seager just has a history of having being dead for like a month and a half and then just turns it on. So I'd like to see it just none of that, and he just turns it on right away and just goes the whole season. That'd be nice. Yeah, Kikuchi's start was impressive. 6 inning or no, 3 innings, 6 strikeouts, 1 walk, 1 earned run. I'll take that. Yeah. Yeah, Sheffield, especially against Texas too. That's kind of it's spring training, but it's also Texas. Like that's a
It's
toilet.
not-
You should
For Kevin's point, it's never good to get blown up.
Yeah.
No.
It's never good to get blown out, and especially not good to get blown out against Texas. Like, yeah, that's not good. I mean, they're a major league team. They're paid to play, but at the same time, too, it's Texas. We're just gonna put it like that. Yeah, bullpen. People have kind of rounded their stuff out in the bullpen. Like Montero, who had a kind of rough start to spring training, has kind of like rounded it out. Gerber as well has kind of kept it solid. Brett has been okay. As we our friend Brett, who's Eric Swanson, has pitched kind of like solid. And yeah, so I'm kind of, and to comment on Sean's point with if White gets pulled down, it'd be interesting to see what they do at first. Like, would you throw over Ty France to first just to get him play time?
And
Like,
who would you then have as DH? Would you then work in like maybe some what's his name, the backup catcher, like Torrens, and then have Tom
Yeah.
Murphy be DH
Yeah.
maybe?
That's a possibility.
Although Tom Murphy is not terrible defensively though. So
If you leave Ty France for DH, like who do you? I mean, you have Marmolejos, who's been playing first last couple of days, who's had an okay bat in spring, but it's spring, so that's why I don't want
it's still Marmolejos. Yeah, I think Evan White's going to get the crack at it because he's kind of the future. And again, they don't really have a great, like you said, I don't mind Ty France at first, but then you just now don't have a DH. And so,
because I'm in my mind, I'm seeing Dylan Moore at second. So
yeah, he's going to be there. If Kelnick made the roster day one, it would make it a lot easier to drop Evan White because then you could have that outfield, then have Mitch Haniger DH, and have Ty France play first.
Mm-hmm.
But Kelnick, maybe that's what we'll look for is if Evan White continues to struggle early and to the point where Kelnick will get called up, maybe they'll flip him and send White down and Kelnick up or something like that and work it around that way.
I'm looking at, just mainly statistics since all we can see are really clips. We haven't really been able to watch a full game on TV this spring, but looking at the statistical leaders, Ty France immediately sticks out. He's had quite a few at bats in a limited amount of games, and he's making the most of it. So really like seeing names on here that I'm not familiar with to kind of emerge and hopefully become, solid starters for years to come for the Mariners. So like you guys mentioned, Trammell, like he's looking pretty good so far for the Mariners. Jake Fraley's not having too bad of a spring. And then, there's some guys who have just been showing up on people who have covered their Mariners for a while on their Twitter, like Haggerty and Dylan Moore are playing pretty decent as well. So it's nice to see a lot of different names, doing some good things in spring. I think the Mariners, every year it's a tough choice, but I think this will be one of the more difficult seasons where they'll have a tough choice in who they want to send down to AAA and who they want to keep up at the major league level, at least to start. Obviously,
it's a nice
that can
change of
change.
pace. It's a nice change. It's a nice change of pace from in the past where you're just like, it doesn't matter. It doesn't matter who's up there or who's not.
Yeah.
And then on the pitching side of things, you guys mentioned Kikuchi. He's looked pretty solid in his innings that he's had, as well as LJ Newsome. I think LJ Newsome has shown some pretty solid ability throughout his innings on the mound so far. And then also, sorry, what's his name here? Will Vest, Joey Gerber, and Chris Flexen are all playing not too bad as well. So it's pretty nice to see some interesting names at pitcher just kind of emerge, because pitching is ultimately going to be the thing that we'll need to hang our hat on, because it's not like our strategy with the Seahawks where you just want to go all offense and the defense won't really matter if you score more points, whereas baseball you really need the pitching to hold up in order to have success and win games. So it's really nice to see all these players performing well, and it'll be some tough decisions for the Mariners. I do want to point out, I was talking to my friend Jordan Nalen at the Daily News, and he seems to believe that Kyle Seager will be traded to the Dodgers midseason to win a World Series with his brother. And it's hard for me to dispute that claim because if you could get a lot of prospects back in return for Kyle Seager if the Mariners aren't playing well from the Dodgers, like
they have a lot of pitchers too.
Yeah, I mean, I would hate to see Kyle Seager go, but it would be nice to send him to play with his brother and have them do something great down there. As much as I would hate to see the Dodgers.
But they just re-signed their third baseman. Though.
Yeah, I was going to say Turner's.
Yeah, they just signed Turner like 2 years, right? I think it was 2 years.
Yeah, so I was like, I don't know if that.
I'm not saying how likely it is, but it could happen. It could happen.
I could see it. I thought it was going to happen before they signed Turner. I really thought like it was like a 60% chance it was going to happen before they signed Turner. But
so let's talk a little bit about the 40-man roster. So we've got about halfway through the spring season so far. So is there anything you guys think will change as far as what we project the starting 40-man roster to be like? Are there any young guys that are really making themselves known and making it difficult for Mariners management to keep them off the 40-man roster? Kevin, have you seen anyone that you're thinking that guy needs to be on the roster just because how he's performed in spring so far?
Not anything new that we've really talked about, like other than just depending on when Kelnick gets healthy. Like I said, Trammell, as Sean already mentioned, has kind of solidified left field. So it's just the game of what do they do when Kelnick comes back. Other than that, the only other way is like Sean mentioned, if he keeps struggling, Evan White, and the fact that Marmolejos is a utility player that can play dang near everywhere, pretty much, and he's been hitting almost I think he's about 300 right now. I think he's 301 or something like that. To where he's not like he's just a solid guy who's probably going to get on base for you, like type of deal. He's not going to do crazy, home runs, but he's a dude that you can kind of rely on to kind of get you a hit type of deal. And he's utility. So I could say maybe Marmolejos. Other than that, Trammell. Yeah.
Sean?
I would say obviously Kelnick, if he had been healthy, was on the track to make the team. How the outfield is shaping up right now, he would have made it, even with Trammell doing his thing. I will say that I think Elias, him getting hurt recently, and is a pretty, from what it sounds like, because he's getting a second opinion, is a pretty major injury. It's going to open the door for one of these younger guys to really make the team right out of camp. I don't think it's going to be Sam Delapine, which I really want it to be, but I think that opens the door for maybe him later in the year.
Can I just point out that Delapine was optioned to AAA Tacoma today?
I know. I think he will be up sooner rather than later now, because Elias is a guy. They're running out a bunch of guys who are, frankly, especially in the bullpen, are a bunch of nobodies, and he's going to be a somebody sooner rather than later. And I think Elias was going to be one of those guys who at least is a major league pitcher. He's not some 28-year-old journeyman who you have no idea who he is. So that's why they were going to not rush him up, but wait a little bit, then call him up. And I think we've talked about Montero getting traded. So I think he was the one that I think is getting a boost recently in training camp, unfortunately due to someone else's injury. But I think playing wise, I really like what I was seeing out of Cal Raleigh. I don't think he'll make the team, but he's definitely looked better than I thought he would, because his numbers coming up have been hit or miss recently, and he's struggled a little bit at AA, but I think he's showing he can hang, because that was kind of the thing too in the fall league. He played pretty well in the fall league with Julio and all those guys, and he's continuing it in spring training, so it's nice to see.
I just want to point out Kelnick and Shed Long are both listed as day-to-day. Sean, you mentioned Elias Ronis.
Roenis Elias.
Yes, Roenis Elias. Okay, I'm going to learn that over the course of the summer.
I made you stop moving to watch his baseball game. That's the story I told last week. His name.
So he's day-to-day right now, and like you said, he is seeing multiple doctors to determine next steps on the left elbow forearm injury. So we'll see how that all turns out. But at least for the most part, it seems like the Mariners are fairly healthy in spring. So that's good as well. Not too many injuries to worry about. So that's really good to see. But I mean, guys, we're getting close to actual games, and I forgot to put this on the document, but it was announced later last week that the Mariners are going to be able to allow fans into their games. So it's about 9,000, I believe, which is like 25% capacity. So there will be fans on opening day for the Mariners when they open the season on April 1st against the San Francisco Giants. So, gentlemen, we're going to have to try and get out to one of these games at some point. So I'm not sure how tough tickets will be, but how excited are you to possibly be able to see a game this year? Sean, I'm going to start with you. How many games would you like to attend this year if you've got the option?
Oh man, I don't think I have the option. But I would like to see at least a couple. I would like to see at least two. I missed last year. I was gonna take my son for his first game, and it got canceled right off the bat. He was gonna go to opening day, but he needs to go see a game. So I need to take him to see his first Mariner game. I will probably wait till Kelnick gets called up so he can see Kelnick. But yeah, he needs to see at least a couple.
Kevin, how many games are you hoping to attend this year? Now that I'm not sure how much tickets will be or how tough they will be to get, but how excited are you to potentially be attending a Mariners game this season?
First, I was going to ask Sean, when you take your son up to there, are you going to like baptize him with the like Dave Niehaus statue?
Yes, and I'm going to use him to get autographs from Jared Kelnick if you're listening to this podcast.
Yes.
I don't know why you would, but I'm going to use my son he's very cute, to get your autograph.
And then go to the dugout the bullpen where they're warming up and be like, I have a cute kid.
Yeah, I'm gonna Lion King him up and be like, sign this baby or whatever, sign this baby's thing. Yeah, he's not a baby anymore, but whatever.
Probably, especially since I'll probably have a little bit time in the summer. I'm gonna try to take the wife down there, probably at least for one, maybe like do a series or like half a series. So like 2 to 3 games, hopefully. So.
Yeah, I'm kind of planning a little farther out because I don't know how much demand will be there. Like I'm really eyeballing like July 6th to the 8th when the Yankees come to town, or possibly June 17th through the 20th when the Rays are in town. So a couple pretty solid options once the summer starts. So I'm hoping to hopefully get to at least 1 or 2 games in the first half of the season, and then hopefully there's maybe some magic in the air or something, and maybe I'll attend some games in the second half, or we'll just see how the prospects look, and we'll judge them from there, and maybe get some garlic fries or some. Is it crickets they have, or is it grasshoppers they have at that stand?
It's grasshoppers. I've had grasshoppers. I gotta be honest. I don't think it's worth the money. I'm gonna be honest.
No, it's not.
No, not even just like.
Wait. You were there when we had grasshoppers, Matthew. You had some.
Yes.
I know. I forget what they were. I wasn't sure if they were crickets or grasshoppers.
Okay. God, I'm pretty sure they were grasshoppers,
but yeah, they had just a little bit of like spice on them, which was not too bad, but a little bit too like crunchy, and you could kind of feel the guts a little bit, which wasn't ideal.
I just thought it wasn't a lot of food for how much you had to pay for.
That's true. It's a baseball stadium, so that's usually how it goes. But
I know.
But it'll be nice that garlic fries will be wafting throughout T-Mobile Park once again this season, as fans will be able to attend the game. So let us know which games you are hoping to attend this season. Go ahead and tweet at us. I'm at @Beta_Matt. Sean's at @Sean_Beatty. Kevin's at Kev's Believe with the first Ian Believes being a 3. Subscribe to us on YouTube and just let us know in the comments what you think and how the Mariners are going to do this season and what games you want to attend. Maybe we'll run into you and Sean will buy you a beer or something. Who knows?
I'm gonna buy you a really cheap beer, not the normal price beer. Come on.
Yeah, I mean that's fair.
Like
not made out of money here.
A Dixie cup full of beer.
Yeah. Give you a drag off mine. How about that?
All right. Well, let's talk about college basketball for a little bit. So we don't really talk too much about college basketball in this program. I'm not sure what people's opinions are on college sports happening right now. Won't get into that part, but I do want to mention that there are a couple Washington teams that are fairly prominent in this Division I men's bracket. So Gonzaga is the number 1 overall seed. They are undefeated this year. and rightfully so. They earned that overall number 1 seed. Eastern Washington is a 14 seed this year. So shout out to the Eagle and the future Eagle on this show right now. They have a tough task in Kansas in the opening round. As you can see, Kevin has his the Natty
Technically for
glass there.
football, but yeah,
I mean, it's still that's
it's still Eastern.
that red field is what they're known for.
I think we figured that, Kevin. I don't think we thought Eastern snuck a national championship in there in the Final Four. I think everyone's aware of that one.
Everybody was kind of in a comatose state during
Yeah.
that year,
What,
so.
UConn or
Yeah.
Virginia didn't win it? Eastern won it one year. I think everyone would have known that one.
Yes.
But Gonzaga and Eastern are in the same bracket. So if they happen to make the Elite Eight, both of them, it could be an all-Washington Elite Eight. Now, that seems rather unlikely with Oregon in the way and Iowa in the way for Eastern Washington, USC. And then Gonzaga, they have a little bit easier path, in my opinion, with Creighton, Virginia, and Oklahoma and Missouri. So this is interesting because, growing up in Eastern Washington, Gonzaga basketball is like the thing. There's not much else nearby. There's no Sonics anymore. Blazers are a little far away. And Gonzaga is just 2 hours up the road to get to the kennel and watch a game. So I just want to ask you guys, growing up in Eastern Washington, watching the Zags play all those years and having all those good teams and all those runs, do you think this is Gonzaga's best chance you've ever seen to capture the title? There was that one year where they had Nigel Williams-Goss and they were able to get all the way to the finals, lost in that game, unfortunately. But, they've been a powerhouse. Mark Few's very good at recruiting. So what do you guys think of Gonzaga's chances? And if you're filling out a bracket, are you taking them? So, Sean, I'm going to start with you. What do you think?
Well, I want to say the first memory I ever have, Matthew, of Gonzaga when Dan Dickow and all those people were there was when we were at a hockey tournament in White Swan, and they had little TVs and everyone was crowding around it because that was like the first year they actually did anything because they finally made the tournament. Gonzaga was some no-name school. We were really, I think I was like 10, so that was like 20-something years ago. They were like, yeah, there's some no-name school, and they beat it. They won a game. And so that was like the big turning point of like Gonzaga became a powerhouse. And ever since then, growing up, that's been Gonzaga. I want to say when it comes to Gonzaga, is this their best chance? It's hard to say because there's been no out-of-conference games. People just don't know how people stack up against anybody. So it's really difficult. I will say talent-wise on paper, they have probably the most they've ever had. But who knows what a Virginia looks like because we don't know what they look like compared to an Oregon or whatever. This is probably their best. I will say I think a lot of people have talked about how Gonzaga chokes. It's hard to choke when you lose to really good teams. Like if you lose to number 1 seed or I know they're the number 1 overall seed, but if they lose to Michigan in the finals, who's the number 2 overall seed, I don't view that as a choke job because Michigan's good. I think why Gonzaga hasn't won one is they've been good enough and they just haven't caught a break. You need a break to win a national championship. You need to not get unlucky once, or you need to get lucky once. And Gonzaga just hasn't got that yet. And I think that's the reason why they haven't won it because they've been well coached, had good enough players. I mean, if Virginia with Tony Bennett can win it with the players he has, the same theory applies. Mark Few is a very good coach. He has good players. They go to the NBA. He can coach those players up. It's just, can you catch that break or can you not run that hot team? And that's all it will really come down to.
Now, I will say you probably haven't watched much college basketball this year, but they have played a lot of the good teams. They beat Kansas 102-90. They beat West Virginia 87-82. They beat Iowa number 3 99-88. They beat Virginia 98-75.
But weren't they allowed not to after a certain point go out of conference because of the whole?
Yeah. And then they basically went to conference play after they played Virginia. So
there was no conference mingling after that.
Yeah. So, the schedule has been a little bit they had their game against Baylor canceled. That was supposed to be a big game early in the season. So they have had quite a few games that were canceled. So, obviously this COVID season, you got to adapt. And
Matthew, we lost all audio from you.
Oh, what? Hello?
Kevin, can you hear me?
I can hear you. Yes. I didn't hear
yeah,
Matt.
Hello?
Okay.
Am I back? Oh, my internet connection is unstable. Well, that's cool. Am I back? Am I back? Okay.
Now I can't. Sean, say something real quick.
I'm back.
Okay.
Okay. I think we're all back.
What just happened?
Now it says my
I'm having
internet
a
came.
little bit of internet troubles. I'm not really sure why. I'm the only one awake right now, so that's really weird. But yeah, so as I was saying, they have played some good teams this year, so they certainly have played some of the best in Division One. So no doubt that they are the best team heading into the NCAA tournament. Kevin, any thoughts on the Zags and watching them play so well lately?
Yeah, it's really kind of hard to. I, I've taken them a couple of times in tournament picks in years past before, just because I want to believe, but unfortunately they've always come to. And winning March Madness 2 is just such a hard task, to be honest. It's just kind of one of those things that you just kind of. As far as what I've been told, because I'm not really much of a college basketball fan, that they do have the talent there to do it. Whether they can, I mean, I know Virginia, just based off of what I've seen in past years, I know each team is different, but Virginia is a top team. So, and honestly, you can't really sleep on any other teams because all the underdogs are going to want to try to get their shot. It just depends on who gets hot and who can stay hot, type of deal. So I'll just root for them and kind of hope they can pull it off this year.
Yeah, I mean, we've seen a lot of good players come through the program. I mean, ones that come to mind: Ronnie Turioff, Adam Morrison, Kelly Olynyk, who's in the NBA right now, Ryu Hachimura, who's in the NBA right now, Domantas Sabonis, who's in the NBA right now, Dan
That's
Dickow,
the
John
one,
Stockton. So a lot of good players have come through the Gonzaga program. So to see where they are right now and basically at the top of the college basketball world, it's pretty nice as someone who's from Eastern Washington, watched them play all these years growing up. So hopefully they do as well as they possibly can. And with Washington State, not so good. They're on the come up in basketball. They have their new head coach, Kyle Smith, so they're still figuring some things out. But hopefully the Cougars will start to pick it up a little bit as these years go on and Kyle Smith can get some more recruiting classes. But it is nice to see a team from Washington doing so well and being the top team on the main stage. And I'm going to pick them in probably any bracket I fill out with my bracket pool. So really hope this is the year. But, like Sean said, it's March Madness. Anything can happen. We've seen the top overall seed lose. So I don't think we're going to see it here, but it is possible. So hopefully the Zags can carry some momentum and win it all this year. But gentlemen, let's get into some National Football League coverage. So we've got some news to cover. So let's start with what I would say is probably the biggest news that we had over the past week. That would be the retiring of Drew Brees. So he retired over the weekend in an Instagram post. And I just want to get your guys' thoughts on what you thought of, the announcement and kind of the legacy of Drew Brees. I would like to start. I've always thought that Drew Brees has been one of the top quarterbacks in the league. He's always kind of been an underdog with, having that short stature. And, he came on as a San Diego Charger, but then went to New Orleans. And then, after Hurricane Katrina really kind of revived that franchise and then led them to their only Super Bowl in 2009. Obviously, he had some down years where the team wasn't quite as good, but, Brees was able to kind of keep them, in the hunt for the most part whenever they had a solid enough team. And then these last few years, as Brees has kind of wounded down his career, there's been like a few times where he's probably should have been to the big game and just never really got back. We haven't really talked about it, but that, the LA Rams, that whole debacle there at the goal line, the Minnesota
Hail Mary, Minnesota
Miracle, and then these last couple of years where they've just had really good teams and just come up a little bit short. So, he has a Super Bowl, so that's something that not many quarterbacks can say they have. So he did win one, which is great, and he beat Peyton Manning, which is also something that is not easy to do. So his career, he leads statistically in almost every category, and obviously he's going to be a first ballot Hall of Famer. It just, it seems like with the level of quarterback he was, it's kind of surprising he didn't win another title or two, or, even have more wins than he had. So it's kind of tough when, New Orleans wasn't the greatest franchise when he got there, but it is a pretty prominent franchise now that he has been there, but now that he is leaving and he's joining NBC as a sports broadcaster. I'm curious if he's going to be in the booth or what he's going to do, but I think he'll be a good commentator nonetheless. Maybe not Tony Romo status, but he'll have some insight, quite like Tony Romo, I'm sure. Kevin, what did you think of Drew Brees?
Yeah, I mean, honestly, I think Saints fans are gonna miss the heck out of him because, I mean, look at the Saints franchise before he got there. It was pretty much nothing. I mean, yeah, he's pretty much set most of the quarterback records, just because he is that dang good. For a couple of years there, kind of like in Russell's early years, I especially vaguely remember that like he was pretty much the only thing on that team. Like they couldn't afford anything defensively. And then over the past couple of years, they're like, oh, our defense really sucks. We should probably pay attention to that type of deal. And then that's kind of when they made their playoff runs and stuff like that. And a lot of times they would kind of be pushing, because I remember they did have one year they were like 8-8 and stuff like that. And that's just because they were giving up like 40 points a game. Like their defense was terrible. And it was just like Drew Brees save us. It's kind of a similar situation that we're kind of seeing now. It's a little weird. Anywho, but no, overall, yeah, I love Drew Brees' play. The fact that I don't want to see paved the way for like what Russell did, because with Drew Brees being only 6 foot, barely 6 foot, I think.
Yeah, he's 6 foot.
A lot of people kind of were like, oh, he's 6 foot, I don't know if he can see over the make those throws type of deal. So yeah, just kind of wrap it up. He's a really good quarterback. He's probably going to be first ballot Hall of Fame, and he deserves to be. He should have probably more Super Bowls. That's probably, or at least been in more Super Bowls. I will say that, but unfortunately, that's kind of the way the cookie crumbles sometimes. So,
before Sean says anything, I do want to mention one of the greatest games Drew Brees has ever been a part of, when he came to Seattle for a road playoff game when the Seahawks were 7-9. And he got to watch Marshawn Lynch run all over his defense for the winning touchdown. So, now he can look back on that as a fond memory, although I'm sure he wasn't too happy about that as defending Super Bowl champions at that time. Sean?
Yeah, I kind of the same thing. I think what Kevin said was what I remember about Drew Brees is just being, as he brought a franchise back and to where it should be. He also doesn't get the credit he deserves because it was always, Peyton Manning, Tom Brady. Drew Brees always was known for the yards, but not doing it. Peyton and Drew, I just want to say in the playoffs, now these aren't advanced numbers because I didn't have a chance to look them up, but he basically has 2 touchdowns, a pick. He's 87% and 300 yards in the playoffs. Like, you can't say the playoffs fault were Drew Brees. Drew Brees was doing everything he could to do. Like Kevin said, I don't know if I was necessarily spending on offense. It was just they were so bad at drafting and finding defensive players that it was the point where it was just pathetic. And Drew Brees there's a couple of years, Kevin said, there's a couple of years where he's throwing for 5,400 yards, 46 touchdowns, and the team went 7-9. Like, what more he's averaging 340 yards a game. Like, what more can this guy do? So, like, I mean, I think Sean Payton has to be considered people say he's a genius, but I kind of hold him responsible for kind of holding Drew Brees back a little bit. I honestly think, because how good of a quarterback Drew Brees was, it took him how many years, and we've seen the last couple of years Drew Brees really regress as a quarterback. They finally got a defense, but could you imagine if they had drafted that way when Drew Brees was killing it and had all those guys out there? That'd been fun to see. And like Matthew said, I think again he's a little snake bitten. That franchise is a little snake bitten because how many times has he lost? I think I saw something that we're forgetting a couple there. I think I saw him lose on 4 freak plays, and no one talks about it. That it was just Drew Brees and the Saints, because everyone just talked about, oh, the Saints can't win it, and it was just like, well, they're just snake bitten. They're just like, what? They got to get a bounce. Like as I was talking with Gonzaga, sometimes you just got to get a bounce, or don't have the other team get the bounce. And whatever they got to do to get that bounce, there's the city of voodoo or whatever it is down there. They just whatever they got to do to cleanse the spirits because they pissed something off. So
Gotta
Drew,
exercise the demons.
seriously, that's what I think about when I think of Drew Brees and this team is like what he could have been, no fault of his own, basically, and what people assume of him as being a choke artist. And
I mean, you guys picked him to be in the Super Bowl this last year, so I mean,
and I think it was they lost this game because Cook, the tight end, had a horrible game. Ball tipped out of his hands. Falls in the Saints. They had an 84% chance to win that game. Cook fumbled the ball, hit a ball in his hands, and it went to a Bucs receiver. Now they still had other chances, but like 2 huge turnovers, the game completely swung, and then Tom Brady made a play, or the Bucs made a play. If the game goes how it's supposed to go, the Saints win. But again, and when it needed to happen in the fourth quarter, bounces, hitting receivers in hands, guy running on the field, fumble. It's just kind of how this Drew Brees' career, I just think, kind of like Phillip Rivers. He was snake bitten. He couldn't catch the break when he needed it. Some quarterbacks can catch the break.
Like on one of those 7-9 teams that he had like in the early teens, I remember vaguely I think it was like a Sunday morning game, and he was playing against the Giants and Eli Manning. And I remember like he threw for 5 or 6 touchdowns and they still lost the game. Like I remember like Eli threw for like 4 and they had like 3 rushing touchdowns or something, and they like won on the last drive. And I was just like, Drew Brees just played his freaking dick off and they still lost. I'm like, what can you ask him to do?
All right. Well,
that's his career.
All right. Well, let's talk about some of the other deals that have happened in the last, weekend, basically. So we'll touch on some former Seahawks here really quick. So Carlos Hyde has reached an agreement on a 2-year, $6 million deal with the Jaguars. So he is now a Jaguar. Wide receiver Philip Dorsett, who never actually saw a down with the Seahawks, is also signing with the Jaguars. So that is
sorry.
They're getting on the Trevor Lawrence train.
I didn't hear about that one, so that's why I was like, oh my god, yes. I've been at work.
So those would be the 2 for former Seahawks that have signed deals recently. So as I think Kevin has shown, I don't think we're too upset about those 2 guys leaving. Not to say that, Carlos Hyde didn't, do some good things while he was in Seattle, but it was a 1-year deal, and, he's moved on, and that's fine. Philip Dorsett didn't even see the field, was never healthy, so we never got to see him in a Seahawks uniform. So that one, wish him the best. Wish we could have seen you play in a Seahawks uniform. You never know what could have happened. But then the other deal that was, not, I wouldn't say, well, I mean, it might be surprising to some people. It was surprising to me, was the deal that Aaron Jones got at running back for the Green Bay Packers to come back. So hold on, I'm trying to find the wording here. Okay, it was a 4-year, $48 million deal, including a $13 million signing bonus. So this obviously plays into Chris Carson a little bit. Obviously, I don't think any of us think that Chris Carson will be back with the Seahawks based on what Aaron Jones just signed for. But, looking at what these running back deals have been, what do you think is the market out there for Chris Carson, and who do you think is likely to pick him up? So I've been kind of looking at this a little bit, and I kind of think there is a good fit with the Jets. They just don't have much there at running back. Frank Gore is, he's going up there in years, and they don't have much behind him. And I'm sure they have quite a bit of cap space to spend. So I kind of expect them to spend the money to take Chris Carson. They did spend money on Le'Veon Bell. That didn't work out so great. But overall, I think that they are in need of a running back, and the draft could be where they get it. But I think it does make a lot of sense for them to sign him for like a 3-year, $30 million deal, somewhere in that range. Something about $10 million a year is what I think Chris Carson is looking for and or trying to get. So guys, what do you think of the Aaron Jones signing and these other signings? And what do you think the market value is for Chris Carson? Sean, what do you think?
what I think about the signings is I will say this with Aaron Jones. Hyde is whatever. $3 million. I will say this: since 2009, the leading rusher in the Super Bowl plus their salary for that year, the person who's made the most money to lead their team in Super Bowl rushing is Percy Harvin in 2013, who made 2.5 against the cap. Other than that was Leonard Fournette, who made $2 million against the cap this year. Basically, if don't have to pay a running back, because since 2009, no one has basically made more than $2 million to lead your team in rushing. Do not pay your running backs because they're largely replaceable. Look at this year, the Panthers: Christian McCaffrey, Alvin Kamara, Ezekiel Elliott, Dalvin Cook, Derrick Henry, Joe Mixon, Kenyon Drake. Two of those teams made the playoffs. Those are the teams that made the most money. Those are two teams, people always talk about Russell Wilson, the quarterback's draining your salary cap and not putting a team around. No, the drain on your salary cap is paying your running back. I don't understand what the Packers are doing paying Aaron Jones that much money. I think that's like they're going to lose linemen and then pay Aaron Jones, who needs the lineman to block for him in the first place. That is where that's the issue with this deal. And that is, I think you're right, Matthew, with Chris Carson going to someone like the Jets, but I think that's also the problem in itself, why those teams continue to be that, because they continue to pay running backs way too much money, Le'Veon Bell, that type of stuff, they're not using their resources wisely. And I think the Jets, you could also talk about maybe the Colts, because didn't they lose Mack? Mack is gone.
They did, but they did draft Jonathan Taylor, and he was the lead back for them last year.
He was hurt a little bit. Washington's up there too. The Broncos, some of these teams could make sense, but
You're gonna do that to J.D. McKissick?
Yeah, I'm gonna do that to J.D. McKissick. I think that's why they're in this situation, and I think that's what makes it very interesting for the Packers, and what the Packers will have a problem with here in a couple of years, or right now, is you don't pay that running back. I mean, look at the Cowboys. You do not pay the running back, you pay the quarterback. And that's going to be their issue.
I mean, they did pay Zeke, though. They did pay Zeke.
And as soon as they paid Zeke, they collapsed as a franchise.
I think that's debatable, but
I mean, it's undoubtedly been a terrible deal.
I guess it depends on what would be the replacement.
I just looked it up. It's going to continue to be a terrible deal. He's signed through the age 31. Oh my gosh. Although they could cut him next year, and I would bet that that's not been off the table. That conversation has been had.
Kevin, what do you think of these deals and the Aaron Jones deal?
Pretty much everything Sean said. In addition to it, too, you literally used a second round pick to draft AJ Dillon, and he looked great last year. He looked really good. He was running people over. You also have Jamal Williams, who also ran well for you. Why pay him? You drafted two backs that literally looked almost as good as the guy you just paid. I mean, that doesn't make sense. For example, if Penny stayed healthy and looked just as good as Carson, why the heck would we pay Carson when we can just have Penny for the super cheap deal? It doesn't make sense, to be honest, especially since Aaron Rodgers is getting older and you need O linemen, and your all pro center just left you now.
Even then, less. Quarterbacks rely less on the O-lineman than a running back does. A running back is much more dependent on the O-line than a quarterback even is. And
just ask Todd Gurley.
Yeah, you removed a guy who Aaron Jones needs to be good, and then just paid a bunch of money to Aaron Jones. When the line's not in front of him, it's not going to be good. He's not going to be good.
Yep.
I mean, I am not surprised that he re-signed with Green Bay. I am just surprised it was as much as it was. I thought he would probably get the 10 million range. I know that's a little steep for a running back in today's NFL, but running backs do want to get paid too, and there's that market for a good running back if you
and they could play for a different team. They could play for a different team.
it seems like the Packers wanted to keep him. He wanted to stay, and they were able to pay him what he wanted. Will it come back to bite him? It seems like you guys think it will. It's hard to say with, they still have Bakhtiari. They still have most of their guys except for Lindsley, right?
And their right tackle is gone.
Oh, and the right tackle.
He's a free agent. I don't think he's been signed yet.
Yeah. Okay. So, it will depend on how they can keep that line together or who they get to replace those guys who have left. So, if they bring a guy, or if they have somebody behind that they think is ready to go, then this deal would make sense to them. So I think that's what they're thinking when they made this deal, is they've got a guy waiting in the wings who's going to be just as good. So perhaps maybe this works out for them, but it seems like a lot to spend on a running back. I agree.
The Super Bowl was headed by the 28th and 34th paid running backs in the league, and the number 1, 3, and 4 running backs didn't make the playoffs. I'm just throwing that out there. Like, everyone always says running in the playoffs means everything, but like.
And now, speaking of Breeze's retirement, how good does that Kamara deal look?
Yeah. Kamara, the 2 and 6 running backs paid last year were the only ones that made the Super Bowl in the top 10.
Because you're now not going to play. You're not going to make the playoffs, Saints.
Yeah.
And you just paid a crap ton of money to a running back that's going to do nothing for you. Have fun.
And again, like we're seeing it now, Titans, they paid Derrick Henry. They're losing wide receivers. They're losing linemen.
Well, hold on. Let's jump into the next topic, which is the linemen that have been signing. So the 2 big names are Joe Thuney, who is now a Kansas City Chief, for 5 years, $80 million is what it is listed as. And a lot of it doesn't count against the cap this year because the signing bonus is mainly what is paying him. I think it's $13.2 million, something. I'm kind of trying to look it up as I'm talking about it right now. But also the other big signing was Corey Linsley to the Los Angeles Chargers. I'm also kind of going through Adam Schefter's timeline right now. Giants guard Kevin Zeitler signed with the Baltimore Ravens. Jaguars and guard Andrew Norwell restructured his contract. 3-time Pro Bowl guard Kyle Long, who retired, 2 years ago? A year ago? I think was it after the Super Bowl they won? I can't remember. But anyway, he's coming out of the retirement. He's visiting the Raiders and the Chiefs. So there's a lot of money going to linemen. Jets offensive lineman Pat Elfin, former, is going to the Carolina Panthers. So there's a lot of linemen changing places, and so far, no news or noise from the Seahawks. Offensive tackle Cam Irving and the Carolina Panthers reworked his deal. So there are a lot of linemen who are moving to different places, but so far the Seahawks have not really cashed in on any of them. So I want to ask you guys what you think as you see all these players signing with teams, and what should the Seahawks do now that like the first wave of free agency is over? So Kevin, I'm going to start with you.
It hurts my soul, to be honest. Yeah. I die a little inside every hour that I don't see a nice, all-pro lineman sign with us, because I know what it's going to take to win, and Pete doesn't. Well, he does, but he doesn't want to go there type of deal. But no, it just hurts.
I have a stat for you, Kevin, for that.
The whole past 3 weeks has shown you what Russell wants. And then like free agency hits and like all of them become available, and the Seahawks are just like they just sit on their hands. Like I don't expect them to be like money. Well, they should, but that's never been their thing. Because Pete. I'm gonna be nice. He's Pete. So yeah, hopefully they there's still, like I said, the Bartielli or whatever his name is, the right tackle out of Green Bay. So there's still a couple other pieces on the free agent market that are worth looking into. As long as it's not like a BJ Finney again. Like, stop going with the cheap like backup O lineman that you think you can have Solari just make into gold type crap. It's like we've experimented with that for so long, and it just needs to stop. get guys that are top 10 ranked, like PFF and that type of stuff, that can just do, and in areas of pass protection, not run, pass protection. I mean, having a little bit of run is good too, but the main thing we need to look for is pass protection guys. So, I mean, it hurts, but it is the first day. I just gotta say, I gotta be patient. Pete's old. Maybe he doesn't know how to use his phone. Like, you try to fax off for it, and he's just like, "Oh crap, wrong number. I fat fingered it." Type deal. I don't know. So, go ahead, Sean.
I was just gonna say, I mean, Schwartz is available. We need to right tackle. I mean,
Yeah.
waiting maybe isn't the worst thing, but
Eric Fisher.
There's people on 710 and on Twitter that think we don't need a right tackle. And I was like, you think
Eric Fisher's left tackle?
What's up?
No, Matthew was saying Eric Fisher.
I know, but he's available. Like,
he is, but that's the one spot I'm comfortable with. Like, we have a left tackle.
move him over. Like, let's sign somebody,
Eric
please.
Can play either.
Yeah,
he can play either.
All right, so I got a stat here for you. So Finley and Lindsley are gonna count against 11 million against the cap.
Yeah.
Seattle last year, how do you pronounce it? OBJ or
Oboihi.
Aboihi, Finney, and Olsen cost more than that for the Seahawks last year against the cap.
Yeah, I died just inside.
Yeah, that's like Ross using your money wisely. It's not that Russell's taking a lot of money. It's we suck at everything else that goes along with it, using the money wisely that we do have. So that's kind of why we're in the trouble we're in. I will say, like what Kevin said, yes, it's kind of frustrating, but again, it's day one. There are a lot of Alex Mack stuff out there. There's even bounce back guys you can go after. There's like Easton. There's a lot of guys they're still out there. So I'm not overreacting, and I don't think we're gonna get one of the big guys anyways. But I just kind of want. Now we won't know this, but what my hope is just Russell's in the room. I just want Russell to be like, look, and Pete and John, and he knows. Russell said this. He's like, we don't have a lot of money, but he just wants to be involved in the situation. Like, look, we cannot get probably Schwartz. Like, he's gonna want too much money. But what other guys can we look at that we all kind of agree on is maybe like a better value? And that's all I'm hoping we go for, because there's a lot of guys still out there. Looking at the top, 20 O-linemen there's not a lot of sign. Russell Okung is still available. I mean, at least he kind of like has been here, a little bit flexible, could play maybe if he wants to go on the right side because he played a little guard, or he could play maybe because he had a left at the left tackle. See what he wants to play right tackle maybe. There's options here we have. So it's not freak out time yet, but like my personal goal is let maybe just have Russell in the building and help make the decision, and don't sign James Carpenter. I saw people talking about that. Do not do that.
Yeah, it's just the first day, so I don't want to get overreacting to any of it, but it is tough to watch, names just sign with teams who, it's like
these were guys we weren't going to get outbid for anyways. But I don't want us to get here in 2 months or 3 months and be like, oh, we didn't sign anybody. Like, they need to be like, because when they say they're like, we're in on like these big guys, I'm like, no, you weren't. You were never going to go that high. I want you to be in on guys you could actually possibly sign. And if you lose that's fine. But like, be on guys that we know you could actually afford.
Well,
yeah. Sorry, go ahead, Kevin.
They kind of, I mean, if they don't sign KJ and don't sign Shaq, they kind of can be in the market. But
yeah, but like, we don't know what they're gonna do with that money. Like, but I'm just saying,
exactly.
Like, you're not gonna be paying what thoroughly like 31 million in guarantees. God. They're just not gonna do that.
Like, my hope is that they sign two, not necessarily all pro guys, but two, good veteran, solid, reliable linemen to, hopefully start, but at the very least be competitive for a job on the line. And then, maybe sign a few, cheaper deals just to see if maybe they emerge. Like, two guys
draft one or something.
Yeah, of course. You've got a draft pick, might as well throw it to an offensive line. But I would like them to sign two veteran guys to, decent deals. It doesn't have to break the bank. It doesn't have to be 5 years, 80 million, but, pay for something that will be secure for Russell when he's standing back there. And then, spend a little bit of money here and there on guys you think might bounce back from injuries or might emerge as maybe at least a solid backup in case, we have the injury plague like we had this last season with linemen going down. So it's, first day, you don't want to overreact, but it is tough to see all these players going places. So I do want to mention a couple things before we head out, and then I want to see what you guys think of any other signings out there. So Kevin Pierre-Louis, former Seahawk, is signing with the Houston Texans. I thought that was interesting. I know it doesn't, he didn't play a lot for us, but that's an interesting deal for him to get down there. And, I don't know what the Texans have, but I imagine he'll probably compete for a starting spot up there. So that's good for him as a former Seahawk. I do want to mention the team that has, really kind of surprised me in free agency is the New England Patriots. They signed Jonnu Smith, Devon Godcho, I think that's how you say his name, Trent Brown, Jalen Mills. They signed Matt Judon. They re-signed Cam Newton. So a lot of interesting deals from the Patriots. So I feel like, Belichick and the GM there are just like, trying to spend as much money as they possibly can because they saw Brady win a Super Bowl and they're like, we can't let him do that again. So it's interesting that they brought Cam back. I thought they might let him walk and, maybe try their hand at the draft or maybe acquiring a guy who's not happy with his situation. But it was interesting to see Cam come back. And then I also want to point out that kind of hit before we started the show. Ryan Fitzpatrick has another new home. He is in Washington, and the only person there besides him is Taylor Heineke. So it looks like he will probably be the starter there in Washington with a pretty solid defense, and he's only got one guy there really to throw to at the moment. But if they can maybe pick up some draft players or something like that, it could work out very nicely for Ryan Fitzpatrick. Also, Jameis Winston is back with the Saints on a 1-year, $12 million deal. So it'll be really interesting to see if they go with Jameis or Taysom Hill. We all saw Taysom Hill play last year, and he was meh.
I was gonna say, did he play?
I was gonna say, meh is very nice, Matthew.
Was that playing?
He won games. He won games. So
because the Saints are a really good team, like not because Taysom Hill did anything.
Well, he was operating the offense, so he had a hand in it. I'm just saying. So
he probably
literally had a hand in it because he had to throw the ball to those players.
No. Time out. You said he won games. He won a game against the Broncos, who literally didn't have a quarterback. Like if they had a quarterback, they lose.
Well, maybe.
I mean,
maybe.
Like that was ugly. That was
would you take Drew Lock against the Saints? I don't think so. Even with Taysom Hill,
with Taysom Hill as a quarterback, maybe. Like Taysom Hill looked like.
We'll never know, but I don't know if that would take.
Just because the Saints defense was
still
just
because of the Saints defense would have probably.
They were.
Any other signings that have caught your guys' eye? Sean, anything out there?
For me, Corey Davis to the Jets. That hurts my soul to see.
That's what I was gonna say. Corey Davis.
I want him in a Hawk uniform, especially now knowing that what's his face is a Jag or Philip Dorsett. Like, why couldn't he be our third?
Although that money, man,
I know.
Yeah, I think he bounced back this year, and going to the Jets, man. Yeah,
the Jets needed weapons though too, and they got one.
They had money. And Matthew's point with the Patriots had a lot of money. The Jets had the third most. The Patriots had the second most.
Oh, I also forgot Nelson Aguilar's a Patriot now too. So
yeah, they clearly. So people are always like writing him off after 1 year. I am good friends with a Patriots fan, and he's a intelligent Patriots fan because there's a lot of those. Brady's the best and all this other stuff. He was telling me before the year started, this is going to be a transition. It's going to be rough. We had 7 guys opt out. Some of them were pretty big players. Like he goes, it's going to be a transition. We're not going to be very good. We do not have a lot of weapons right now. So it's going to take some bumps and they're going to have a plan. They struggled through, they did their thing. And then right as free agency starts, they just explode. The Patriots had a plan and they're executing this plan right now. And people are watching it happen. Will it work? I don't know. But again, people are writing off the Patriots as it was all Tom Brady and they're done. And I'm like, you might find out next year. I'm not saying Cam Newton's going to be great, but like we're going to know for sure next year when their team's back and healthy and playing what the Patriots actually look like.
Because honestly,
I think 6-10 was worst case scenario. I think 6-10 was worst case scenario.
There were like Cam Newton had no weapons last year. Let's be honest.
Nothing.
Edelman's just a shell, kind of what he has been. N'Keal Harry's a bust. Yeah, I can't really even name anybody else on the team.
They had Marquise Lee. I thought he died. No, I'm kidding. But yeah, adding Janu Smith and Nelson Aguilar, especially since Nelson Aguilar kind of had a resurgence last year. They had 3 starting defensive players, including Chung, Hightower, and Allen, all sit out last year because of COVID.
Now losing Thurney will kind of be a bit of a blow, but just because O-line is very important, but we'll see how that kind of works out.
Yeah, I think that it's going to be interesting to see how that works out. Okay. So before we get out of here, everyone please follow us on Twitter. I'm at Beatty_Matt. Sean's at Sean_Beatty. Kev's at Kev's Believe the first thing believes being the 3. We are at an hour here. So I was just getting ready to wrap up the show, and I saw one of my friends, journalist friends, said that the Bears went with Andy Dalton, and I have not seen any confirmed reports at this moment that is actually a confirmed thing, because it still says he's on the Cowboys. But when I Googled it, it said quarterback Andy Dalton could be out of the Bears, and a lot of reports out there about Andy Dalton going to the Bears. So that's actually not the.
It's an upgrade.
Yeah, that's not a
it's
bad
not
signing for them.
Crazy, but
yeah, I mean they just need someone to not shoot them in the foot at the quarterback position, really. So that could probably be an upgrade there. Any final thoughts? Anything you want to plug before we get out of here, Sean? You want to plug your other podcast a little bit? Is Sean there? Is he frozen?
I think we lost Sean.
Sean?
There you are.
I'm not gonna plug anything because I'm probably gone. So no, we're good. Just follow me on Twitter.
All right.
What is happening?
All right. Well, I will be covering a prep football game. Don't know what it will be quite yet. It could be Steilacoom Tumwater. It could be Napavine on Alaska. But either way, it should be a good game. And I did not see a good game last weekend. So I'm really hoping to see a good game this weekend on the final weekend of prep football in the state of Washington. So follow me on Twitter if you want to catch some updates from those games. With that, we will see you next time on Washington East to West Sports.